My name is Shawn Kershaw, and I'm the host of To Whom It May Concern, a video TV show that we're filming right here in Vermont. And we're looking to interview Vermonters of all ages and walks of life, and whether they're multi-generational or they just showed up here. We want to find stories about what it's like to live and work in Vermont. And we want those stories to be captured because we don't want them to go away. We want to make sure that we capture what's interesting and unique about living and working in Vermont. So today, my guest is Adam. When you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Adam Boyce from just across the way in West Windsor.
Yes, and Adam is one of our guests today. And Adam is known as the fiddler. When I said I was going to interview you, somebody said, oh, he's a fiddler. So one of my first questions is, what's the difference between a fiddler and a violinist?
Well, a fiddler would tend to play more traditional tunes, whereas if you're going to play Mozart, you're a violinist. A fiddler plays hoedowns. But the other definition I like better is the violinist takes pride in how much they pay for their instrument. The fiddler takes pride in how little they pay.
Okay, so fiddlers are in line with the Vermont philosophy of paying little for the most that you can get. Would you agree with that?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, there certainly is a more traditional folk type music as opposed to the highbrow type.
Interesting.
But there are all kinds of lines, jazz type fiddling. So
yeah, absolutely wonderful. So Adam, tell me a little bit about your history in Vermont.
Well, I was born at the old Berry City Hospital.
Okay.
And my father's ancestral farm was in Williamstown, where we had been since the 1780s. But the furthest back I go is to Dummerston. Captain John Cathan was the first settler there in 1752. Wow. So
1752.
So we're not exactly newcomers.
No, not at all.
But I grew up in Williamstown, just a couple towns south of the capital, Montpelier, in Orange County. Mostly farming people.
Nice. And
my mother's side were up in the Burlington area, French-Canadian factory-type workers.
Okay.
So that's where I first saw the light of day, was up in central Vermont, and then I moved down here in 2009 because my fiance was here down in West Windsor, and been here ever since.
There you go. Excellent. So did you grow up on a farm?
Oh yes, it was my grandfather's farm.
Okay.
He was a retired dairy farmer, had beef cattle, but he also had a sugaring operation.
Oh.
He never drove an automobile.
Really?
Only had horses. The horses were gone by the time I came along.
Okay.
And we did own a couple of tractors, but he never operated them. It was either my father, my brother, or a hired man.
Right.
And everything was done pretty much the hard way. It was a subsistence farm.
Yeah.
And
wow.
No disposable income to speak of.
To do anything with. Yeah.
But he was quite involved in civic municipal organizations in town as town moderator, justice of the peace, and things which I went into at a very young age.
Interesting.
Did those same things for 20 some odd years, and was very involved with the Williamstown Historical Society, which I got involved with in 1985, and I was involved with them for 20 some odd years.
Wow. So tell me the year that your grandfather retired. Like what era is that?
Well, around 1965, officially from dairy farming, but again, he went into beef farming and then and sugaring, and she retired altogether for maybe 10 years after that. So it was the advent of the bulk tank. He was still using milk cans. Wow. And but there was all of these remnants from different periods of time. The house would have been built around 1806. Some distant uncle built the house, the barns, and it was a place he was born, where he lived, farmed, and died, with the exception of maybe 1 year in the late 19-teens. He and his mother went to work on another farm briefly, but he had
raised
always
his
been
family there. He raised his whole family there.
Absolutely.
And then your father also raised your family, your siblings and you there.
Well, we came there. My father was a master electrician. He was in the Burlington area, and then he was down in Connecticut briefly working at Pratt & Whitney aircraft engine plant in East Hartford. Then he was up in the Williston area. Then in the mid-'60s, my grandfather, who was a widower, offered my parents a piece of land if they would come back.
Yeah.
And my father wanted to come back to the farm, but economically it was not a good decision.
I'll bet.
Because he had a job at General Electric in Burlington. He could have retired with a pension, but he was always very quick to point out if he hadn't done that my brother and I wouldn't have known what it was like to be on a farm. And that was my only recollection, is only living there.
Yeah.
And
so you grew up on a farm.
Correct.
You have one sibling?
Yes.
Okay.
A brother he's about 14. There was about a 14-year difference between us. So
wow.
I was kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was one of those too. So yeah, they still love you though. That's a good thing. They
absolutely.
Still love you to pieces.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So who were the significant people in your life? Who were people that influenced you, either on the road to what you do for a living, or on your hobbies or things that you like to do? Who were some significant people?
Oh, well, how long do you have? I was very blessed, but always being the youngest at everything. My parents and I were members of the Grange, and there were lots of people who were 20 or 30 years older than my parents. I associate much more with older people, but there was, Marjorie Carpenter. She and her husband, Orrin. Marjorie, I believe, was born here in Ludlow. She was a piper. Piper was her maiden name. So anybody that has a connection.
Knows a piper. So if you know somebody named Piper, it might be related to Marjorie.
Her first husband was a Kibbe, and I believe she's buried here in Ludlow.
Interesting.
But she influenced, me and a number of other people. But then later on, there was Lawrence and Lila Warbridge up in Williamstown. Their families, respectively, would have known my families back generations ago, and a lot of very valuable information. How I got started in fiddling was with Harold Chuck Luce up in Chelsea, who was a preeminent traditional Yankee-style dance hall fiddler.
Okay.
And he had been playing for dances probably ever since he was a teenager, and he died 11 years ago, close to 90.
Wow.
And so he
fiddled all that time.
He fiddled predominantly with a handful of lessons, primarily was self-taught, but very, very smooth. But he played a lot of things, not just the standard jigs, reels, and hornpipes that traditional players would play, but he could also play some honky tonk, some Tin Pan Alley, Somewhere My Love from Dr. Zhivago. There were certain things, whatever he liked, he learned it. And he had a repertoire, conservatively 750 to 1,000 tunes.
Wow. And how did you come to know him and tutor with him, or what was your relationship?
Well, coming up on 34 years ago, I started dancing with a group called the Ed Larkin Dancers out of Central Vermont, which
You were actually dancing, or you were playing?
I was started as a dancer.
There you go. Okay, interesting.
My early musical history was I took piano lessons, like so many others did, but then dropped it.
Most kids, yeah.
But I got in, and then I learned to do the calling or the prompting of the dances.
Okay.
And then because of one of our fellow members, he pushed me into learning to play fiddle because he wanted to play fiddle. And so we both went to Harold individually for lessons. And then I started learning how to play chords or rhythm on piano to accompany fiddlers like Harold for contests and dances and various.
And this is what year? When is this?
Well, 1991.
And you are about how old?
10 to 23, going on 24. I thought I was
still a pup.
I thought I was too old because violinists are supposed to start when they're 3 or 4. And by 1995, I was learning to play piano, and those two singular events, fiddling and piano playing, got to play with Harold at a number of places. We did everything from nursing homes to senior meal sites to dances to parties to the Festival of American Fiddle Tunes out in Port Townsend, Washington.
Goodness.
And
Wow.
and then you just ran into all of these subgroups, the Northeast Fiddlers and various others. So I was always picking up new things and new, but still trying to emulate Harold's style. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And so was this your living? Is this what you did professionally, or is this was no?
Oh, no.
This was for fun. This was.
I was a jack of all trades, master of none.
Okay, got it.
I mean, I did everything from farm work to janitorial work. And, so this was. It was kind of a busy sideline. We had, maybe 7 or 8 gigs, non-paying, and some paying once in a while per month. I mean,
wow.
we were quite busy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most of those people I started playing with are now sadly deceased.
They passed away.
And it's a style of music that isn't very popular unless you go back and people would know my Wild Irish Rose or some of those standards.
Right. And are you still playing fiddle?
Yes, but not as often.
Okay.
It's also harder to find accompanists. I have a guitar player way up in Corinth who comes down, or I go up to see him once in a while.
Okay.
I've got a piano player. She's probably a couple hours away, and she just had a shoulder replaced. So,
so that's going to put you on hold for a while.
We are supposed to be playing, as we have for many years, at the Plymouth Strawberry Festival at Camp Plymouth State Park
which is just
June.
Coming up. Yeah.
June 18th.
Yeah, June 18th.
So she's using that.
Put that in your calendar.
She's using that as a benchmark. She wants to get back. But we have played, aside from the COVID years, we played there every year, and they keep asking us back. So
well, that's a good thing.
Exactly.
So. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just go back to your childhood a little bit. Give me I grew up in a neighborhood, in South Jersey. Grew up in a neighborhood. I have no idea what it was like to grow up on a farm. Was it a fun experience? Was it hard work? Was it a combination of both?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about the fun part of it.
Well, my grandfather was still using 19th century techniques, horse-drawn techniques, but with tractors. So we would have loose hay, dump rakes, horse-drawn tedders, but we were pulled with a tractor.
Wow.
And one of the things we did was to go out to the barn when we had a bunch of hay, we would jump in the hay. Now, that could be potentially hazardous.
I would think so.
If you didn't happen to land correctly and hit a beam instead of the hay.
Exactly. So there was a little element of danger there, which makes it fun, for sure.
But no, you had basically the whole outdoors. Your nearest neighbor might be a quarter mile, half a mile away.
Wow.
But somehow I didn't have helicopter parents so that I could wander all over. We had a wood lot. We had total acreage was maybe 45 acres. And just like my father and his sister would have had, they had the run of the place, basically.
Yeah. Wow. How about school? Where did you go to school?
Williamstown Elementary from the time, kindergarten through grade 7. And then my parents were not of especially great means, but they didn't like what they saw when I started entering the big school, the junior school. So they sacrificed and sent me to a private Christian school run by fundamentalist Baptists up in Websterville, which is part of Barry Town.
Okay.
And I graduated from there in 1986.
Okay.
Very small classrooms, but logistically, it was 8 miles to get there. There was no busing.
No.
So my parents had to make arrangements with people to truck them back and forth.
And back every day.
Yes.
How about elementary school? How many children were in your elementary school?
It varied, maybe 10 to 15
per class.
Student per
class.
Per class. Which when I went to Websterville, it was maybe 5 or 6, and 4 in my graduating class.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So how did growing up on a farm, living in that environment, growing up in that environment, small community, sounds like it was a close-knit community. How did that influence what you did and where you lived for the remainder of life. Did you ever think of leaving Vermont?
Oh, never Vermont, and actually never Williamstown. I wanted to be there because at least 7 generations of my family had been there.
Yeah. Wow.
You certainly learned about work. There was nothing that came to you. You know, if you wanted food, you had to raise it, or the cattle got out, you had to get them back in. You had to fix the fence. You had haying to do. There was wood to be cut. That was our primary heat, was firewood. It certainly, I think we can all tend to get a little romantic about certain things, but the way my grandparents lived was very, very hard. And my parents had it a little easier. We had things like electricity.
Right.
But it still was not at the same level as some of our neighbors. But I think you appreciate them when you do get them.
Yeah.
And realizing we came from people who came here when there was nothing, very little, and they were able to build things up. They had a very strong work ethic. They didn't buy things that they couldn't afford. Very seldom ever had credit on anything.
Yeah.
And they were very resilient people. And even though my father was not necessarily a carpenter or a mechanic, he could tinker on things. He could work on things. And if we didn't have it, we got by. And nowadays it seems like it's a right. You have to have this.
Right.
And but I've known a lot of people who grew up in such circumstances that really became the substantial people of a community, and they weren't necessarily the best educated, or had the most money, but they had the highest standards. They were good people to know, and they certainly shaped who I am.
Oh, excellent! Wow. So when you left high school, you were still in the area where you grew up.
Yes.
And you stayed there all that time until most recently when you moved to Windsor County.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. And now that you're in Windsor County, how are you, is it different down here than it was up there? Are there similarities? Are there things that you miss from being up there?
It's a much smaller community. West Windsor, I think at the last census, is maybe 1,400 inhabitants. Yeah. Williamstown was getting to be 3,500 or closing in on 4,000, which seems to me large.
Twice as big.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of the same principles are the same. There are always these small town dynamics and personalities.
Yeah.
I think maybe in Williamstown I had sort of a sense of entitlement because, again, my family had been there from the 1780s. But that and $10 will get you maybe half a cup of espresso.
Exactly.
It really didn't. I mean, there were certainly some good people there, and I liked being there. But there are there's a certain proximity to things down here in the Upper Valley that I couldn't get up there.
Yeah.
And my wife and I are in a very lovely site and very rural.
Yeah.
We're just a little below South Woodstock, and we're just
beautiful
up
area.
About a mile from a paved road, but we're on a dirt road. And so, it feels like I've always been there, and it's not all that long, but you bond with a particular area, and so it seems like my time in Williamstown was a past life.
Oh, interesting. Okay. You mentioned Vermonters and some of the values and sort of principles that they have. Tell me if you know of anything quirky about Vermonters. As a person that has moved here, I'm just curious if there are things that Vermonters think or believe or do that might be a little bit different than the rest of the 49 states.
I think every place has some quirk. I mean, if I was to go to
fair.
New Jersey,
that's where I'm from.
I would think you're quirky.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's such a subjective thing. I think basically we liked having neighbors in that when you needed them, they were there, and when they weren't, they left you alone.
Yes, I have found that to be true.
And maybe, and maybe that's a quirk, or we're sometimes stereotyped because of Calvin Coolidge that we have nothing to say. No.
I don't think that's true.
When we have something to say, maybe it's worth listening to.
There you go. Okay.
And
all right.
so silence,
I like that.
Silence is good. I mean, the saying is, it's better to be silent and thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Exactly.
And I think
that is true.
I think maybe from a native's perspective, there are people who come in and they have to get into everything, and they love this place so much, but now you have to change and put streetlights and sidewalks.
Right. Let's make it New Jersey.
Yes, it's the place that you couldn't wait to get away from.
Yes. Fair enough. That's true.
There are certain improvements I like having, EC fiber access,
yes,
having high-speed
that was
internet.
helpful.
Very nice.
Very helpful. Yes.
But having a certain reversion back to some of these things, like when the power goes out, even though my wife and I now have a generator.
Right.
We have a wood-fired cook stove from 1907.
Still cook. Yeah.
So we can still
be warm,
and we still eat, and we use it 90% of the time in the winter. So there are certain things that once in a while you need to revert back to, just to appreciate, but also they're functional. They work. They don't require batteries or Wi-Fi.
Still work. Exactly.
Excellent. So I am not anti-flatlander. That's what we would call people.
Yes, we understand that.
But it is about respecting people, and no matter where you go, you don't just walk into somebody's house and say, "Oh, I don't like the color. I'm going to redecorate this place." For
sure. Right.
You appreciate it, and you have discussions on whether it's planning or whatever.
Yeah.
Have a discussion, but not an ultimatum.
There you go. Excellent.
And I think that's maybe where some folks, and maybe you could say some of the natives, have the fault of being too close-minded, and they want everything to be from the 19th century still.
Could be.
So there has to be some,
a little bit of that.
There has to be some give and take.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned that you're going to play at the
Strawberry Festival.
The Plymouth Strawberry Festival. That's on June
18th.
Okay. So you brought some pictures along, which looked like they have something to do with fiddling. So walk us through these different pictures and tell us who these folks are and what you're doing in them and where you are.
Well, this first picture, there are 4 of us at the former Brookside Nursing Home down in White River Junction, Wilder.
Okay.
And that was probably from around 2005. Myself, I was playing piano.
Okay, so this is you. Then you've got a fellow who's fiddling.
Okay, this would be Harold Luce. He was my mentor.
Oh, your fella.
The other fiddler, Wayne Doyle from Chelsea.
Okay.
He and Harold played together for years. And then the guy with the banjo is Ken Uline from Lime Center. I think he is deceased, but this was from probably around 2004.
Okay.
Well, we used to go there every month. We played there and the other Brookside up in Bradford.
Lovely.
But yes, it was this mix of older popular songs, some fiddle tunes, what have you, and the people always looked forward to it.
And the banjo is a nice accompaniment, or a nice accompaniment to the fiddler, or to the fiddle. Is that true, or does the banjo go with everything?
Well, this would be a tenor, which is a 4-string, and most people associate with bluegrass. It's a 5-string.
Sure.
Banjos have been. It all depends on who's there.
Good point.
And what was available. Some people would use accordions, and other people use other things. So
got it. Okay.
It all depends on how loud or how soft. And Ken was always very soft, so I liked his playing.
Okay. This is a lovely picture.
Oh, that is our wedding picture from nearly 15 years ago. Myself and my wife, Mary Ann.
I love that. I love her hat.
Yes.
Very sweet.
Yes,
okay. And where were you married?
At Brownsville Village in West Windsor.
Oh, yeah.
We were married at the church, and then the reception was at the town hall.
Right across the way.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. And who's this fella?
Oh, well, that's me.
There you are.
Yeah, that's on one of my my cards that I send out.
Nice. Okay.
That was at a Northeast fiddle meet.
Okay. Now, what's a fiddle meet? For the contest?
No, a meet is just like a jam session.
Fun.
There used to be practices for fiddle contests, because the Northeast Fiddlers used to put on a contest in Barrie for many years. But it was a monthly gathering for people to practice.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, yes. And last but not least, we have...
Oh, that was my wife and I up in Hancock. That was just before everything shut down.
Oh, before COVID.
That was on Valentine's Day 2020.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So when I spoke to you, you and I spoke about a couple different things and how we were going to talk, what we were going to talk about today. And one of the things that I ask, and I'm going to ask all of my guests this, is that everyone has defining moments, moments that literally change the course of your life. And most of them are, if you've been married, that certainly changes the course of your life. If you have children, in that case. But some of them are more subtle and more nuanced. So I asked you to think about that. And did you think about it? And if you did, do you have one or two defining moments, things that really you could have gone this way and instead you went that way and changed the direction of your life?
Well, I think it was, going to that open house for the Ed Larkin Contra Dancers on February 9th, 1991.
Wow.
I almost didn't go to that.
Interesting. Okay.
Earlier that day, I was at an officers meeting for the Williamstown Historical Society, and afterwards I asked if anybody knew, was the fish fry going on in Brookfield at the Masonic Hall?
Right.
And nobody knew.
Yeah.
So I drove, for those who know, Route 14 goes down through Williamstown Gulf, and I went up around the long way to get back home, and I said, well, if it's on, I'll stop for supper. And sure enough, cars were there.
Okay.
And I happened to sit at a table with people I knew who were Grangers, but they were also members of this dance group. Okay. And they mentioned that there was an open house going on that night in Tunbridge. Wow. And then I met another couple on the way out who said, I knew also were in this dance group, and they said, oh yes, get a gal, come along. and so I went over, and my habit is to get somewhere, 45 minutes to an hour ahead. And
gotcha.
I got there in Tunbridge and no lights, and it was cold.
Uh-oh.
And I starting my car like 2 or 3 times, and finally, like the 4th time, I said, well, maybe I have the wrong location. So I headed north, and I just happened to pass this later couple that I met on the way out of the fish fry, and I recognized the vehicle, so I turned around and went back.
They were going this way.
And when I went back, the lights were all on, the doors were open. I could have, and I only went to watch, but the lady in this couple saw me sitting on the side, and she said, well, you're here, don't you want to learn how to dance? And I said, oh, I only came here to watch.
Yeah.
And she said, well, you're here, you really ought to dance. So she said, my husband will dance with somebody else, and I'll dance with you.
Wow.
And so if that hadn't happened, I probably would have never danced, and I probably would have never got interested in playing the fiddle.
Right.
And actually, if I had learned to play piano chords before I learned to play fiddle, I would have had no reason to ever learn to play the fiddle. I actually think I play better accompaniment than I do fiddle.
Interesting.
Well, most people know me as a fiddler, and but yes, I would say the other very significant thing was finding Mary Ann.
For sure.
She went to a Victorian ball sponsored by the same group at Damon Hall up in Heartland, which I almost didn't go to again.
Good thing you're going to these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I was a member, and you know, I had duties.
I might not go tonight, kind of thing. Okay, got ya.
But she was there. But I didn't get to dance with her the first time because some fellow kind of marked her out as.
Oh boy.
Well, he was a married man, but his wife had an injury, and he wanted a dance partner.
Sure.
And after every
fair enough.
And after every dance, he would always hold her hand, like you know, stay away.
Yeah. Right.
And I did manage to get one dance where we were the inactive couple, and by the time we got to the top, the dance stopped.
Oh.
Well, we talked.
There you go.
And then at the end, we were doing some Eastern-style squares. My mentor, Harold Luce, could fiddle and call simultaneously.
Wow.
And she was in the same set that I was. She was in the first position. I was in last.
Okay.
And she warned her partner she didn't know her right from her left.
Uh-oh.
And he said, that's impossible. Everybody knows their right from their left.
Right.
Well, when we came to do an Alaman left and a grand right and left, he found she did not lie. And so here we are, we're waiting to do our thing, and there's nobody coming in our direction. And after those 2 squares, he wasn't holding her hand anymore.
Oh.
So I swooped in for the waltz.
There you go.
And yes, and so that was a very transformational moment. Absolutely.
Change the trajectory of your life.
Absolutely.
For the good.
Absolutely.
For the
yes,
good.
of course.
Both of those things are for the good.
Of course.
You found something that you love to do, and just by happenstance, stepped into that, and then it changed the way that you live your life and the things that you do and the things that you enjoy.
Yes.
Lovely. That is absolutely lovely. Well, thank you, Adam. I appreciate you being here and taking the time out to talk to me and to us. And we will see you next time. And this is Shawn Kershaw, and you can hang your hat on that. This is To Whom It May Concern, and we'll see you next time.